Your brain does not create consciousness. I know how that sounds. You have been told your entire life that everything you are, your thoughts, your memories, your sense of self, is produced inside your skull. That belief feels obvious, almost unquestionable, like gravity, like time. But what if it is completely wrong? Not philosophically wrong, not spiritually wrong, scientifically wrong. Because the deeper neuroscience has looked into the brain, the more a disturbing picture has emerged. And the picture does not match the story you were told. When scientists first began mapping the brain, they expected to find something like a control room, a central place where consciousness lived, a command center where everything came together, where the you inside your head actually existed. It seemed like a reasonable expectation. After all, if the brain creates the mind, there should be a place where the mind happens. But that place was never found. Instead, what they discovered was something far stranger. Activity spread across vast networks, constantly shifting, constantly reconfiguring, different regions lighting up depending on what you are doing, what you are thinking, what you are feeling. There is no single point you can point to and say, this is where consciousness is. Not in the prefrontal cortex, not in the thalamus, not in any structure. Nowhere. The philosopher David Chalmers called this the hard problem of consciousness. And after decades of research, no one has solved it. We can map every neuron. We can trace every signal. We can describe the entire electrical architecture of the brain. And none of it explains why any of it feels like anything at all. Why there is an experience of being you. Why seeing the color red feels like something instead of just being data processed in silence. The brain is doing something. That is not in question. But what it is doing may be very different from what you were told. Here is where the picture gets deeply uncomfortable. In 2014, a cognitive scientist at the University of California, Irvine, named Donald Hoffman, published a theorem that shook the foundations of neuroscience. He called it the interface theory of perception. Hoffman did not just speculate. He used evolutionary game theory, mathematical simulations, to test a simple question. Did natural selection shape our brains to see reality as it truly is? The answer was devastating. In simulation after simulation, organisms that perceived reality accurately, that saw the world as it actually is, were outcompeted and driven to extinction by organisms that did not. The winners were the ones whose brains created useful fictions, simplified icons, a user interface, like the desktop on your computer. When you see a blue rectangular icon on your screen, you do not think that the file is literally blue or rectangular. The icon is a shortcut, a simplified representation designed to help you interact with something far more complex underneath. Hoffman's theorem suggests that your entire perceptual experience, color, shape, space, time, even the solidity of objects, is the same kind of interface. Not a window into reality, a desktop built on top of it. Your brain did not evolve to show you what is real. It evolved to show you what is useful, and useful is not the same as true. This means something staggering. The world you see, hear, touch, and navigate every day, every moment, is not the world as it is. It is a controlled hallucination, a species-specific interface designed for survival, not truth. And behind that interface, behind the icons, behind the desktop, behind the carefully filtered experience your brain constructs for you, there is something else. Something your perceptual system was specifically designed to hide from you. Not because it is dangerous, but because it is too vast, too complex, too overwhelming for a biological system to process without collapsing. If the brain is not showing you reality, If it is constructing a simplified interface and filtering out everything else, then the brain is not a generator. It is a limiter, a boundary, a reduction valve, a screen that converts an incomprehensible signal into something manageable. And the question becomes, what is the signal that the screen is filtering? There is a network inside your brain called the default mode network, the DMN. It was discovered almost by accident. Researchers at Washington University noticed that certain brain regions became more active when subjects were not performing any task at all, when they were simply resting, daydreaming, thinking about themselves. Further research revealed that the DMN is responsible for some of the most fundamental aspects of your experience. Your sense of being a separate self, your autobiography, your inner narrator, the voice that tells you who you are, where you have been, and what your life means. In short, the DMN constructs your ego. It is the network that draws the line between you and everything else. It builds the boundary. It creates the feeling of being a someone, contained inside a body, looking out at a world that is separate from you. And here is what neuroscience discovered next. And it is one of the most extraordinary findings in the history of consciousness research. When the default mode network is suppressed, when its activity is significantly reduced, consciousness does not diminish. It expands. This was demonstrated in landmark studies by Robin Carhart-Harris and his team at Imperial College London. Using brain imaging on subjects under the effects of psilocybin, they expected to see increased brain activity corresponding to the vivid, overwhelming experiences people reported. Instead, they found the opposite. The areas of the brain that decreased the most in activity were the exact regions of the default mode network, the ego network, the separation network. And as those regions went quiet, subjects reported the most profound experiences of their lives. A dissolution of the boundary between self and world, a sense of unity with something infinite, an awareness that felt more real, more vivid, more true than their normal waking experience. Less brain activity, more consciousness, not less. That finding is inexplicable if the brain generates consciousness. If the brain is the source, then reducing its activity should reduce experience. But it is perfectly consistent with a very different model, one proposed over a century ago by the philosopher Henri Bergson. Bergson suggested that the brain's primary function is not to create consciousness. It is to reduce it, to take an overwhelming, infinite field of awareness and squeeze it through a narrow valve, producing the focused, limited, manageable stream you call your daily experience. The brain is not the faucet, it is the valve. And the default mode network, the ego network, is the tightest part of that valve, the part that reduces the signal the most, the part that tells you you are separate, you are contained, you are alone inside your head. When that valve loosens, even temporarily, the signal floods through. And what people describe when it does is remarkably consistent across cultures, across centuries, across every method that has ever loosened the valve. Connection, unity, the dissolution of separation, the overwhelming sense of being part of something that was always there, something vast, intelligent, and alive. If the brain is a valve, if it reduces rather than creates, then what is the field it is reducing? Physics offers a clue that most physicists are still uncomfortable with. At the quantum level, particles do not exist in defined states until they are observed. Before measurement, they exist as probability waves, spread across multiple possibilities simultaneously. The act of observation collapses the wave function into a single outcome. This is not philosophy. This is the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics. formulated by Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg. And while physicists debate exactly what observation means, the implication remains deeply unsettling. The universe, at its most fundamental level, seems to respond to awareness, not to instruments, not to mechanical processes, to observation, to something that looks remarkably like consciousness. Physicist John Archibald Wheeler, who coined the term black hole, went further. He proposed what he called the participatory universe, the idea that observers are not passive witnesses, but active participants in the creation of reality itself. Wheeler summarized it in a phrase that still haunts physics: no phenomenon is a real phenomenon until it is an observed phenomenon. If that is true, even partially, then consciousness is not a byproduct of matter. It is woven into the fabric of reality. It is not produced by the universe. It is something the universe is built with. And if the brain is a valve that reduces this field, if your entire perceptual experience is a filtered interface hiding a deeper reality, then the question is no longer, how does the brain create consciousness? The question is, what is the source of the field that the brain is filtering out? What is the signal your interface was designed to hide? And why would anything be designed to hide it from you? Now, hold everything you have just heard. The failure to locate consciousness in the brain, Hoffman's interface theory, the default mode network as the ego valve, the field that precedes matter. And turn to the 15th chapter of the Gospel of John. Jesus is speaking to his disciples, and he says something that, if you hear it through the lens of everything we have just discussed, is not a metaphor. It is a description. I am the vine, and you are the branches. Whoever abides in me, and I in him, bears much fruit, for apart from me, you can do nothing. Read that again through the science. You are not an isolated processor generating reality from inside your skull. You are a branch, an extension of a living system. Your consciousness does not originate in you. It flows through you from a source you are connected to. And if the connection is severed, if the branch is cut from the vine, it does not merely weaken, it dies. Not because the branch was defective, but because it was never designed to operate alone. Hoffman showed that the brain constructs an interface that hides the deeper reality. Jesus named the deeper reality. He identified the source behind the interface. I am the vine. Bergson said the brain limits consciousness. The psilocybin research proved that when the ego valve opens, people experience union with an infinite field. And Jesus, 2,000 years before any of them, described exactly what that field is. Not an abstract energy, not an impersonal force. A vine, a living, sustaining personal source, from which you are never meant to be disconnected. There is one more thing Jesus said that, in light of everything we have covered, becomes almost unbearable in its precision. In John chapter 10, verse 30, he said, I and the Father are one. Not I'm connected to the Father, not I receive power from the Father. One. If the brain is a valve, narrowing an infinite field of consciousness into a focused, limited experience, then what Jesus was describing was not a theological abstraction. He was describing what happens when the valve is completely open. No distortion, no reduction, no separation between the receiver and the signal. No interface standing between awareness and the source. Full coherence. That is what I and the Father are one means in the language of the science we have been discussing. It is not a claim of ego. It is a description of a state. The state in which the default mode network no longer constructs the illusion of separation. The state in which the filter is transparent. The state in which consciousness is no longer experiencing itself as apart from its origin, but as one with it. And then he said something even more remarkable. In John chapter 14, verse 12, "Truly, truly, I say to you, whoever believes in me will also do the works that I do, and greater works than these will he do." He was not describing a special privilege reserved for one person in history. He was describing a potential state of consciousness available to anyone whose valve is open, whose filter is clear, whose connection to the source is unobstructed. The miracles were not magic. They were what happens when the interface becomes transparent, when the full signal of the source flows through a human system without reduction. Bergson said the brain limits consciousness. Hoffman said the brain hides reality behind an interface. Carhart Harris showed that dissolving the ego network reveals an infinite field. And Jesus said he came to give life, and life abundantly. Not more information, not more theology, more signal, more of the field. The valve, fully open. So what are you? You are not a brain generating thoughts inside a dark skull. You are not a ghost trapped inside a machine. You are not a closed system producing its own light. You are an antenna, a receiver tuned to a frequency, a living instrument designed to translate an infinite signal into form, into action, into love, into presence. And the quality of your experience, the depth of your awareness, the richness of your life, the clarity of your perception depends entirely on one thing. How clear is your reception? Because a radio tuned to the signal plays music. A radio disconnected from the signal produces only static. A branch connected to the vine bears fruit. A branch severed from it withers. An antenna aligned with its source receives everything. An antenna misaligned receives noise. Your life, the fatigue, the confusion, the sense that something is missing, the feeling of being trapped inside your own head, may not be a problem of effort or willpower or psychology. It may be a problem of reception, of tuning, of alignment with the source you were built to receive. You were never designed to generate consciousness on your own. You were designed to receive it, to channel it, to give it form. And the source, the vine, the signal, the field behind the interface, has a name. You are not in your head. You are everywhere your signal reaches. And your signal was designed to reach the source, not as a metaphor, not as a comfort, as a description of your architecture. The neuroscientists cannot find consciousness in the brain because it was never there. It flows through the brain the way a signal flows through an antenna, the way life flows through a branch, the way light passes through a window. The window does not create the light, and you do not create the awareness that makes you, you. It comes from somewhere. It comes from someone. I am the vine, and you are the branches. That is not poetry. That is the most accurate description of human consciousness ever spoken. And it was spoken directly to you.